Hey, Kevin here from A Self-Reliant Life, and this is another video in a series that we're doing about self-reliance. And in particular, we're dealing with an issue right now. If you're watching this video currently as we put it up, it has to do with a virus outbreak we're having in the country that came from China, and we're taking some pretty I don't want to use the words drastic or extreme, but we're taking some very out there measures, I guess, some pretty serious, that's a good word, serious measures to contain this and stop the outbreak from getting out of hand. And this is just one of a number of types of scenarios that we could get into on a local or even national level. It happens to be a national, actually international level at this point, but we want to have some contingencies, and I think the contingencies are the sensible and prudent things to do. And so we've started a series of videos to talk about being prepared for whatever event may be disrupting life or causing us to have to take some different measures in order to get through an event. And so what I have in front of me right now, we talked about some food things in previous videos, and this is a couple of propane tanks, and I just want to talk about, these are pretty common things to have. If you don't already have them, you may very well. If not, a couple things are going on here. So we have a small 1 pound disposable propane bottle, and these are really pretty common for using on small heaters and cook stoves and different appliances. And so these are something you're going to use up, and then you're going to dispose of it. They're not particularly reusable, although they do make some things that you can use to refill them. But from an economic and longer term standpoint, these larger 5-gallon propane tanks, which are pretty common for barbecues, are going to be less expensive, and they're refillable, and they'll last you quite a while in comparison to, this is 1 pound of propane, this is 20 pounds of propane, so it's 5 gallons is 20 pounds, and so these are, we can use these in bulk scenarios, even have multiple appliances being used off of one tank at the same time. So the first thing I want to talk about is cooking. So I'm going to bring over a cook stove and show you how we use that with these type of fuel canisters. Okay, so you can use this is something we've had around for a very long time in our family. In fact, I think this is older than some of my kids, and it's a Coleman camping cook stove. And we keep it in this handy dandy storage bag, easy to carry around. And if you were getting an up close look at this, you can tell that it's got some mileage on it. I'm going to set this out of the way here. But I want to show you this because you've either got one of two sources for cooking in your house. It's either an electric stove or a gas stove. If you have an electric stove and the power goes out, you're not cooking on their stove. If you have a gas stove, you can still typically cook. You probably have to light it with a lighter or a match because the electronic spark device wouldn't be working at that point, but you can still have propane or gas, natural gas, coming into your appliance. However, this kind of takes care of everything, and I think it's a really good investment. This is a Coleman brand. There's a number of different ones out there. This has been a really reliable and pretty tough stove that we've had for decades, literally. And I think they're probably running around $50 right now to go get a new one, or maybe a little more. I don't know. I haven't bought one in that long. So this folds out, and these are little windscreens that you can pop out to turn so that it's blocking the wind so it's not hitting the flame. But essentially it's a 2-burner gas cooktop, and they run on propane, which is readily available throughout the US in either the disposable bottles, which you can use on here, or in bulk. And you can refill or exchange these bulk containers, all over the place. Grocery stores have them, big box stores have them, gas stations refill and or exchange them for new bottles, so they're they're real easy to get a hold of, and so it makes it very convenient. So I'm not going to set this whole thing up, but essentially the regulator sits over here, and if you're going to be using the small bottles, they get a little plastic cap on here. You screw this right onto the end of this, and this is screwed into the orifice right here on the side, and then it allows you to turn these two burners on, and there's quite a bit of BTU there coming off these burners, and so you can cook on top in a pot or a pan or whatever. And they are, you know, pretty portable. They're easy to carry around. You can throw them in the trunk of your car, and you can store them, you know, under your bed, whatever, in a closet. They're really easy to operate, and they last forever. I mean, like I said, I've had this thing for God knows how long. I'm sure 30 years anyway, and it's still banging away. So a little more economical scenario would be to have a bulk bottle like this 5-gallon one over here, and then you can buy a hose, an adapter hose, and this screws on, much like you're going to hook it up to your barbecue, which is where you're going to see these very often. And then this is an adapted side that'll connect up to this regulator and allow you to use it off this tank. And so this will last a very long time in comparison to this. This may last you, you know, a few days to a week depending on how much cooking, but this could literally last you for weeks, even months in comparison, and much less expensive per gallon to purchase in bulk than it is to, these are very convenient, but they also are quite a bit more expensive, and you can you know, depending on where you're at, that might be appropriate. This is certainly makes it a lot more convenient on a long-term basis. So you've got your cooking ability here. I would certainly set this on a surface that is not prone to heat, because they can get warm underneath. So I mean, we have no problem setting them on picnic tables when we're out camping, or a countertop, but there's going to be heat coming off the top of this a lot. So just make sure you're not sticking it underneath of a cabinet or something. Just set it out on a table like we've got here, and that way it's not going to cause a problem. So really versatile and compact and easy to use and fairly inexpensive, and so it's a great thing to have so that you've got the flexibility of cooking even when your normal cooking appliances are not useful. Okay. So let's talk about another really good investment, I think, which is a heat source. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit of a heat source here. Again, if you run into a scenario where you need supplemental heat because your heat system is not working and you need to heat a space, this is going to be a handy thing to invest into. Again, this is not a whole house heater per se, although in my scenario, because Anissa and I live in a very small home, which is under 600 square feet, this will heat this house, and in the climate that we live in, which is the Pacific Northwest, this is more than adequate to heat this house through the winter. In fact, we use a small electric heater that puts out about the same amount of BTUs of heat, and that's all that we need to get through the winter. And so it's, you know, maybe in an apartment setting this would be accurate as well, but if you're in a home larger, then you may be using this in just one room so that you can keep a good warm area. This brand is Mr. Heater, and this is one of 3 different models that they make. This is the middle model, and so I think this one runs between 1500 and 1800 BTUs, as I recall. This will use the small disposable tank. It just screws on right up in here, but you can also, because it has the same style of adapter on this particular hose, you can screw this up in here and use this bulk tank and effectively extend your heating range by considerable amount of time. This will last for hours, this will last for days, and so it's a good way of not having to horse around with a bunch of little bottles. It's a propane heater. It's a catalytic heater, which is what this white ceramic portion is right here. This is safe for indoor heating, but you need to have ventilation, and so because it uses up oxygen as a part of its combustion, you need to have makeup air or oxygen coming in, so cracking a window and allowing that to work. And I've used this in very small spaces. We've used this inside of our van overnight, and we just had one of the windows down a few inches to make up the air, and it kept the thing warm in some pretty cold weather down into the 20s, and kept it comfortable even without, you know, a lot of insulation. So it's got an electric spark igniter. So it's fairly self-contained, and it's portable. You can carry it around. It does have a lot of safety features built into it, so if it tips over, it shuts off. If the oxygen level gets below a certain percentage in the space that it's in, it will shut itself off. So there's a lot of safety features. But this definitely has a heat and flame. You could cook on it if you wanted to. I've seen people make little racks that will sit out here where you can put a pan or a pot on top of this and actually use the heat cooking. So again, a lot of heat coming off the top of this, so you don't want anything too close in this area in order to make sure that it doesn't cause problems. I would recommend having a carbon monoxide detector you know, in the same room as this. We carry one in the van so that when we're using it, it's sitting in there just out of precaution. That way if it does get building up, that's going to go off and wake you up if you're sleeping, and then you can, you know, ventilate your space. So those are some really handy things. Like they said, they make a bigger model of this. It actually takes two of these, one on either side, puts out a lot more heat. I don't even remember what these cost. I've had this thing for so long. But we'll put some links below the video if you want to look at them for the stove or the heater or the propane tanks and so forth. But these are really handy. Again, this will heat our home in case of the power or our heat source being out temporarily, and so this is a great addition to your self-reliant equipment kit, if you will. And then they make a little bitty one that actually just sits on top of the bottle. It's about that big around, and same premise. It's a ceramic heater, a lot smaller than this, and puts out a lot less heat, but in a confined space it's adequate. So just kind of size appropriate to whatever scenario you're in. But this is actually a great piece of equipment to have around to keep you self-reliant. So we'll go on and finish this video up. If you like the video, certainly give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel. We're going to be putting out more videos along the line of self-reliance and preparedness, so that we have a sensible ability to, you know, take on whatever events may come our way. And certainly share this video with other people if you find it informative, and help other people become informed so that they can make good decisions and take care of themselves and their families. So with that, I will see you on the next video.